Hello and good evening. Welcome to This Way Up, brought to you by the Zionist Voice. I'm your host, Ted Goldstein. Thank you so much for joining us. Darkness is the order of the day. There's no point in mincing words and denying the reality that we are living through. We're living in a world where we cannot help but wake up and see violence against the Jewish people in Australia, in New York, in Massachusetts. We cannot help but see massacres committed at Bondi Beach and at Brown University. And more than anything, we cannot help but hear the deafening silence from all of those who were meant to protect us, from the institutions that we had funded, to the governments that we elected, to the police officers who we thought were meant to protect and to serve us. We are all waking up in a world and realizing that no one is there, that we are alone, and we are surrounded by this darkness. And more than that, not only are we surrounded by this darkness, but we are at war with an army of darkness, with people who seek to crush the light of the innocent simply because it exists, who seek to silence the brave so that they may not protect the innocent. We are at war with people who would rather live in violent fear than to live amongst their neighbors, to live in peace with the people who live amongst them. That is the world that we are living in now. Not only a world with such tremendous violence, but a world with such deafening silence. The heartbreak of seeing the people we grew up with, the people we knew, the people we trusted, who have been so unbelievably silent after every single attack against the Jewish people is heartbreaking. But it is the case. It is the reality of the world that we live in. 10 years ago, Charlie Hebdo produced a comic that upset the Muslim world. And in response, the editors of Charlie Hebdo were massacred. Today, 10 years later, you can't find that cartoon anymore. That cartoon has been scrubbed from the face of the earth. And yet all that remains is the fear that has lingered. Since then, who has challenged terrorism? Who has been brave enough to stand against this onslaught of fear? And if unfortunately the case may be, Charlie Hebdo has been a case study in what not to do. That you should not stick your head out. That you should not stand for what you believe in. That you should not speak and live your values. Because you may be killed in the process. In the 10 years since that comic has been produced, we have only become more silent, more fearful, more afraid. We live in a world where people are completely unwilling to stand in the face of injustice, and yet they are willing to do anything to serve that very injustice. Primo Levi, the great Jewish poet and chemist who wrote If I Were a Man, Survival in Auschwitz, who lived through the experience of the concentration camp and what it did to human beings, described a type of person in the concentration camp who was neither malicious nor kind, was neither evil nor good. He described this type of person as the gray, ambiguous sort of person. The sort of person who would do something evil in the moment that it served him without necessarily being himself evil, and certainly never thinking of himself as such. The gray, ambiguous sort of person is the person who is willing to say that all violence is wrong, that killing is wrong, that genocide is wrong. And that kind of person is the same person who will be silent when it's Jews being killed, when it's Jews who are being murdered in the street, because it has become inconvenient for them to acknowledge it. Because to acknowledge the reality of anti-Semitic violence in the world would mean that they'd have to open their eyes to the possibility that the anti-Zionist narrative is wrong. And to go against the anti-Zionist narrative in 2025 is at the very least inconvenient, and unfortunately, quite often, deadly. And so the gray, ambiguous sort of person is loud when it's convenient to be loud and silent when it is inconvenient to speak. And this sort of person is the kind of person that we are surrounded with. As Primo Levi himself notes, the gray, ambiguous sort of person who beats another prisoner in Auschwitz doesn't do so out of malice. This is not an evil person. And to say that they are evil is wrong and unfair. This is a person who is responding to the reality of the concentration camp, to the reality of the world around them. And they are saying, I cannot maintain my moral standards given the violence of the concentration camp. Therefore, I must make concessions. I must do things to protect myself so that I might not be the next victim. This person is afraid. They're scared. And they are living in a situation that they feel is objectively dangerous to them. The people who lived in the concentration camp were under constant threat of violence being done by the concentration camp guards. And if we are honest, we can acknowledge that the digital jihad that has been going on for over 2 years now has made it so that anyone who stands for or with the Jewish people is in danger. They may not be physically in danger, although they often are, but they are in financial danger of losing business. They are in social danger of losing friendships and opportunities. These are real things for them to be afraid of. These are real things that you can lose when you stand up against anti-Zionism. And yet, these people remain gray, ambiguous types. They are not morally courageous. They lack the moral courage and spiritual audacity that modernity requires. There is a reality we must face. We cannot continue to let this violence go on unhindered, because as long as it does, it will only get worse. The global response to what happened in Bondi has been more violence against Jewish people. There have been more people getting attacked in the days since then than before. I have not seen a single person who has made a single stand against this act. I have not seen the mayor of New York cry out that Jews are getting attacked on the subway and on the streets of Crown Heights. I have not seen the governor of Massachusetts talk about the violence and depravity of killing academics, and I certainly have not seen any moral clarity from Brown University. There is a reality we must face. We are alone here. We, the Jewish people, and the handful of our allies, the righteous among the nations, who are willing to stand in the face of terror. We have no friends in the institutions. We have no allies. Unfortunately, these people, these allies and institutions that we once relied on, the journalists and the universities and the government officials and the police officers, all of these people benefit in some way or another from global anti-Zionism. The universities are funded by Qatar. The politicians receive money that is certainly coming in one way, shape, or another from an anti-Zionist source. The police are terrified of what might happen to them if they go against the hundreds of thousands of people who march and scream in the streets. We have become so comfortable in modernity with all of the things that we have that we have become afraid to lose them, to lose the prestige of our jobs or the wealth that it provides us, the accoutrements of a modern lifestyle, the social experiences of being able to go out and party with friends without having to worry who here will call me a dirty Zionist. That is comfort, and comfort has made cowards of us all. It has turned us into people who prefer our convenience than our moral courage. And in this world, we lack moral clarity because we are unwilling to stand against the things that we know are wrong. And yet, there is still light in this story. There's still hope. And that light comes from Ahmed al-Ahmed, the 42-year-old father of two, the owner of a fruit stand, who put himself on the line, put his life on the line, to disarm the terrorist who attacked our people at Bondi Beach. Now, it's far too easy for people to think that this is a war of the West and Islam, because that is not true. It's very clearly a war of darkness against light. There are forces of darkness in Islam and in the West, and there are forces of light in Islam and in the West. And these two things cannot be further from the truth, that race and religion are not the things that make a person, but our individual character and our individual decisions. That is what makes us who we are. Judge me not by my cultural identity. Judge me by the actions of my character. Ahmed al-Ahmed has proven to us that there are still brave individuals in this world who have moral courage, who know the difference between right and wrong. And there were many other people on that beach who stood for what was right, who gave their lives to protect others, who sacrificed their bodies to try to get in front of the shooter. And they deserve just as much credit as Ahmed al-Ahmed. But the reason that we find ourselves talking about this man more than anybody else, I believe, is because of this, unfortunately, is the story of two fathers. It's a tale of two patriarchs. One who trained and taught his son the ways of hate and violence, and who in their last paternal activity together killed 15 other people. For him, that was the mark of his fatherhood. That was the crowning achievement of what he has done in this world as a man. And Ahmed al-Ahmed, who himself is also a father, demonstrated his version of fatherhood, what it means to him to be a patriarch, to demonstrate to one's sons and one's children what it means to be a good man is that sometimes you run towards danger. Sometimes you do what is right. And here is the great lesson for us to take away from this, that individuals are great. Individuals can be great. Individuals have the capacity to save lives, to bring light, and to make the world a better place. And individuals also have the chance to spread darkness, to snuff out light, to make the world a darker and a worse place, to bring pain into the lives of others. And that is the choice that we all have before us. We can choose to be agents of the darkness, to be agents of cowardice and fear, or we can choose to be agents of light, to be people who go into the world and spread our light to others, to make this world a brighter place, so that we do not have to fear as much tomorrow as we do today. Because to be quite honest with you, I remember what it was like to live in a world without fear. I remember how much better it felt when I could trust my neighbors and I could feel that I could walk down the street wearing a kippah and a Jewish star and no one would harass me. And if they did, then my other neighbors would have stood up for me. I remember that world. It was not so long ago that we lived in that world. And yet comfort has made cowards of us all, and now you look around and you cannot find a single institution that will have your back. The armies of darkness seek to snuff out the light by killing innocent people, but they also kill the light by making us afraid to shine ours. When we feel unwilling or unsafe to be who we are and who we are meant to be, the world loses something. The world loses something every time a person decides not to speak their mind because they are afraid of what the repercussions might be. Every individual has the beautiful capacity to make the world a brighter place. And every time they choose not to do so out of fear, the armies of darkness win. They succeed when we are too afraid to spread our light into the world. And so, when the world loses a light, when innocents are killed and their souls are taken from us, we must shine our light brighter. We must find the way and the strength to be the light in the darkness. We must learn to say that if darkness is the order of the day, then I shall be the light. Because we cannot continue to live in this dark world. We cannot continue to let these tragedies happen. Otherwise, we will lose ourselves and everything that it actually means to be human. We will become nothing more than comfortable automatons. People who go through the world with our eyes glued to our phones because we are too afraid to look up at what might be right in front of our faces. And that is not a world I am willing to live in. When attacks like this happen, Jews all over the world ask themselves, is it safe for me to wear my Jewish star? Is it safe to send my children to day school? Is it safe for me to wear a kippah and to say Shabbat Shalom to my neighbors? And that is the right response. That is the prudent, smart, cautious response. And it is also the response of fear. And we cannot afford to be afraid any longer. Yes, they are making the world less comfortable for us. Yes, we are less safe where we walk than we used to be. Yes, I know. But we cannot afford to let the darkness win. That is the ultimate lesson of Hanukkah. We celebrate this holiday and we talk about the miracle of the oil. But really, what is the miracle of Hanukkah? What is the story of Hanukkah? Why do we celebrate this holiday with Hanukkiyot, with these weird candelabras that we never use in the rest of the year, that have no religious significance? They are not the menorah, the holy candelabra that stood in the temple. They're not even representations of that. There's something else entirely. And what this holiday is about, what the true story of this holiday is about spreading light in a dark world, and about having moral courage when everything around you is telling you not to. The story of the Maccabees is an incredible story, because the Maccabees were not warriors. They were Kohanim. They were priests. Their job was to protect and maintain the temple service, to keep the light of the holy menorah lit. And yet, when war came to them, when their light was threatened, when King Antiochus refused to let the Jewish people spread their light, it was in that moment that the Maccabees took off their priestly vestments and donned the armor of battle and rode out and fought for their people and for their world and for their light. When we celebrate the oil burning for 8 nights, when it only should have lasted for 1, what we are talking about is not oil. We are talking about a representation of the spirit of the Maccabees. That they should have only had enough hope to last them 1 night, to stay bright for 1 night in the world of darkness. And yet, they lasted longer. They stayed 8 nights. And in Judaism, 8 always represents something that is supernatural. The week is 7 days. 7 is natural completion. But 8 is something that is outside of natural law, something that is outside of the natural order. And the faith and the hope of the Jewish people is outside of that natural order. The faith and the honor and the courage of Ahmed al-Ahmed is outside of that natural order. The willingness to continue lighting Hanukkah candles in public after a Chabad rabbi is murdered, that is the burning of the oil. That is the unbreakable human spirit that is within all of us. That is the lifeblood of bravery. That is the moral courage that our people have always depended on. Hanukkah is not just a celebration of a miracle of oil or of a successful rebellion against a tyrannical regime. Hanukkah is the celebration of the faith of a people that has never broken. And it is the willingness to continue to spread light in the darkest part of the year. In the dead of winter, we light as many candles as we possibly can, because we want to show the world what it means to be a force for light, and a force for brightness, and a force for growth. That's why we light the shamash first. That is our own light, the light within our own soul, because we have to activate ourselves. And once we have found the ability to cherish and to support our own light, then we can take that light and spread it to the next person, and the next person, and the next. And when we do this, we bring light into the dark night. We spread light into the darkest part of the year, into the darkest part of the world, because we are unafraid. Like the Jews who lit Hanukkah candles during the Nazi occupation, we are not afraid either of the violence that we see in the streets or the silence that we hear from our friends. This is our moment. This is our strength. This is who we are. This is who we have always been. We have always been the army of light, or legoyim, the light unto the nations. Sometimes it's not a metaphor. Sometimes it's literal. Sometimes we simply shine. We simply shine like the Hanukkah because we do. And sometimes that is enough to show the world what it means to stay courageous when everyone is trying to kill us. That is the brightness of Judaism. Here we stand on Hanukkah in the year 5786 or 2025 in the year of someone else's Lord. This is the world that we have, and we need to make it better. That is the true meaning of Hanukkah. And that is why we light our candles. So what do we do now? We know that the world is filled with darkness. We know that no one is coming to help us. We know that they're all silent. We know. We know all of this. And yet it still feels like there's nothing that we can do to fight against the army of darkness. But there is. There is a way for us to fight. We fight for every single light there is in this world. We fight for every light, for every candle, for every wick, for every second of fire that still exists, because we know that with that light we can kindle another. That from one lit flame can come another, and then another, and then another. And soon you go from having one candle to having 8, to having 8,000, to 8 million, to 8 billion. That is what it means to go up in this life, to move forward, to have a vision of a future that is better than the present. I'm so sick and tired of the constant downward mobility of all things, of people complaining about everything, that things are getting worse, movies are worse, the economy is worse, politics are worse, religion is worse. It's all worse, I know, and I'm sick of it. So it's time to go up. That's why Zionism is more important than ever before, because Zionism is a political movement about moving up, about making aliyah, going forward in the world. Moses was a Zionist not because he believed that the Jewish people would end up in the land of Israel, but because he believed that the Jewish people could come from slavery to greatness. That is Zionism. And we have not finished the process. Just because the state of Israel exists does not mean that we have found the greatness that we seek. It does not mean that we have broken the chains of anti-Semitism that kept our people down for thousands of years. They still keep us down, and they are still heavy. But they can be broken, and they will be broken by the people who believe that they can break them. That is the message of Hanukkah. To have the faith of the Maccabees, to have the faith in your own light, that you can spread this light into the world. And it does not have to be something great. It does not start with fighting a rebellion. It starts with you. It starts with being a little kinder to the people around you, to calling your mother and asking how she's doing, to speaking more politely to your father the next time you talk, to giving a bigger tip just because someone smiled at you, or just because you want them to smile more, to smiling at another stranger because you hope that their day will be a little brighter because you know how dark it can be. That is what it means to fight in the army of light, to fight for something better. Because God damn it, can we really tolerate this anymore? I am sick and tired of the sadness and the pain and the anger. I need to get rid of all of this. Yes, I know the situation. I am aware of what's going on. But I am not afraid. I am not afraid of people who kill innocents or the people who are silent in response because they are cowards. And I am not. I am a Jewish person. I am a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I follow in the tradition of Moses. My life will be going from slavery to greatness. Even if it takes 40 years of wandering around in the desert, I will not die in the slavery I was born into. I will die on the way to the promised land. And even if I don't make it myself, my children will. Because we are going up in this world. We're going up. We're spreading light. We are not willing to continue tolerating an intolerable situation. This is the meaning of Hanukkah. This is the meaning of our people. And this is what it means to spread light into a dark world. I hope and I pray that things may change, that the institutions that we once relied on will wake up and become strong again and find their moral courage. But I'm not waiting anymore. I'm taking my own light, my own candle, the shamash within my soul, and I am marching straight up to the armies of darkness. I am holding my candle out, seeking anyone else with a candle who's looking to kindle theirs. And so, as we always say, spread love, spread light. Am Yisrael Chai. Happy Hanukkah, Hag Sameach. We cannot continue to live in darkness. All we need is a little more light. Thank you all for joining us. This is This Way Up, brought to you by the Zionist Voice. Happy Hanukkah, Hag Sameach, and of course, as always, spread love, spread light. Am Yisrael Chai.